So my name is Joanna, and I'm a researcher, but I'm also a trained stop-smoking specialist. And until recently, I was working as both. So some of what I might say might kind of overlap a little bit what you said just now. And for me, there are two main questions when one thinks about electronic cigarettes. So the first question is about safety. So are electronic cigarettes less harmful to you than normal cigarettes? And the second question is about smoking cessation. So are electronic cigarettes actually helpful to people who want to quit smoking? And I will try in the next 6 minutes or so to give an overview to those answers, but of course there's sort of information in only 6 minutes, so I'll just do my best. So the first question about safety. Here's a slide I have borrowed from Professor Nutt, and it gives quite a nice illustration of the different products that contain nicotine and the relative harms that they may have. So you can see that on the one end of the scale we have cigarettes, which have been deemed to be the most harmful nicotine delivery products, alongside small cigars and pipes. And then on the other side we've got sort of purer types of nicotine, so sort of pharmacological nicotine, things like patches and nicotine gum. And it's important to note that all of those things have some sort of level of risk in them. And you can see that cigarettes of course are like the most harmful ones, but then other products might have sort of minuscule levels of harm associated with them. And the way that this study had been done is that it asked experts to rate all those products on various criteria that talk about harm in terms of harm to the user and harm to the society as a whole. And that's the scale that the experts came up with. And electronic cigarettes are in the little red square. So you can see that they have been placed closer to the nicotine replacement therapy products. It's important to remember that electronic cigarettes are still quite new products on the market, and we don't have longitudinal data that will say with absolute certainty that if someone vapes every day for 50 years, X, Y, and Z will happen to them. So all we know is what we can predict, knowing what electronic cigarettes contain and what normal cigarettes contain, comparing. And in the UK, we've had a number of big reports published recently that all endorse this figure from the study, which says that electronic cigarettes pose about 5% of the harms that normal cigarettes do. So I think all the evidence at the moment, at least, indicates that electronic cigarettes are definitely safer to you than normal cigarettes. And then moving on to the next question, are they helpful to people who want to quit smoking? I think the main thing to know is what's the best way to quit smoking. And the worst thing you can do, according to research, is to go cold turkey. It's the least successful way of quitting. But if you use licensed medication like NRT or Champix, you are twice as likely to quit smoking successfully compared to cold turkey. And you can think of it as having a little bit of a step, giving yourself a little step to get out of the hole. And similarly, if you use group or one-on-one support, such as going to a local stop smoking service, you also have doubles the chances of successfully quitting. So that's more like someone else giving you a little bit of a boost to climb out of the hole. But if you combine the two and have both medication and support, you're actually 4 times as likely to successfully quit. But despite that, the interest of smokers to access a stop smoking service has been dropping quite dramatically. And one of the hypotheses for that is the fact that electronic cigarettes came on the market, and because they're not a medication, people don't have to get prescription for them. You can just go and buy them. They don't feel like they need the extra support. But all the research suggests that if they had the support as well as electronic cigarettes, they could have been even more successful in quitting. So with this in mind, my colleagues from Queen Mary University conducted a little pilot study in one of the stop smoking clinics in London. And they decided to offer electronic cigarettes as one of the products alongside traditional treatment. So from March to 2014, 100 people that came through the doors of the stop smoking clinic in London were offered electronic cigarettes, as well as traditional medication and the weekly behavioural support. And they were given the electronic cigarettes and also refills for up to 4 weeks to keep. They're given instructions how to use them and advised that they can just use them as often as they feel the need to. So out of the 100 people that came through the doors, 69 accepted electronic cigarettes. And you can see in the table below that some of them opted to have just electronic cigarette and the weekly support, but some of them opted to have electronic cigarette, other medication, and the support. And after 4 weeks, 65% of the people that accepted electronic cigarettes managed to stop smoking successfully, comparing to 45% of the people that didn't have the electronic cigarette. And just to give it a bit of a context, the sort of national average in England for stop smoking services of success rate at 4 weeks is about 38%. So both the groups did pretty well. The difference between them wasn't significant. I mean, it was approaching it. So what can be concluded from this study is the fact that electronic cigarettes can be at least as helpful to people as traditional medication. And for some people, they can be even more helpful than licensed medication. And apart from collecting the stats I've just told you about, we're also collecting client feedback. So 93% of the people that used electronic cigarettes in the trial found them either very or extremely helpful. And one of the most sort of common feedback that we got was the fact that people found them quite satisfying, and they felt like they didn't really feel like they had to, they weren't tempted to ask friends who still smoke for a cheeky puff. They were quite happy with the electronic cigarette, which was quite encouraging. And there was a different study that was really, really interesting that actually asked people that didn't want to quit smoking at all to take part in the study. And they recruited those people that were adamant they wanted to keep on smoking and split them into two groups. And one group received electronic cigarettes and were told you can just go and vape if you want. And the other group was given nothing, they were just the control group. And really, really surprisingly, after 2 months, the group that got the electronic cigarettes but didn't want to quit smoking, 34% of them actually managed to completely stop smoking, compared to 0% in the control group. But you may still think these are just two really small studies. What can be said about the whole general population? But looking at sort of more general data, this is data combined from all of the stop smoking services in England between 2014 and 2015, and it looks like the successful methods on top there, you can see this is just electronic cigarette alone, followed by using licensed medication, and then later on electronic cigarette. And the third one from top is using electronic cigarettes and licensed medication together. So it seems like the two trials I've just mentioned, sort of the trends are the same as sort of broader data. So just in conclusion, I think the evidence we have so far indicates that electronic cigarettes are both safer to you than normal cigarettes, and they also can be helpful to people who want to quit smoking.